Hello and welcome to the next online lesson for Functional Skills English. Okay, so today the lesson is going to be continuing looking at reading skills. So if you can go on to the Moodle page as well, I will show you where the materials are for this online lesson because you will need to use the reading texts that are here in order to understand the question. Okay, so this is the folder under Materials for Online Lesson. So look at these materials alongside the video lesson to work your way through what you need to do today. Okay, so let's make a start. Okay, so just let me bring my PowerPoint up. Okay, so outcomes, the aims for today's lessons are to do a recap of language features, and then we're going to do a couple of readings about World War I and Remembrance Day. Obviously, this week is Remembrance Day, Remembrance Sunday, so it's quite apt that we're doing some readings that reflect the experiences. Okay, so first of all, if you go to the Moodle page, there will be a Word document which will have all of these ideas on here. All this is a recap of language features. Okay, so this is the idea of recognising different techniques that writers use in order to make the writing more interesting, more exciting, more persuasive, whatever it might be. Okay, so what I want you to do is pause the video in a moment and then work your way through the worksheet. I'll just show you what that worksheet looks like. I'll make it a little bit easier for you. So it's the Word document that says quiz literary terms. Just wait for it to come up. Like I said, it shows you what, so it's the same thing that's on the PowerPoint, all the different features. So fill in the missing letters, and so you can, again, just help you recap those ideas for you. Okay, so Word documents take a little bit long to open up today, but that's fine. Like I said, just pause the video. That's this one here, same as on the PowerPoint. Try and work out what each one is, then we'll go through in a bit. Okay, so have you done that? So the first one, so when the writer's talking directly to you, that is called direct address. Okay, so second one, choice of words to draw a response. This is emotive language. Okay, so specifically an idea, use of language that can make you feel kind of either guilty or sad about something. Can also be happy, but normally it is to make you feel guilty or sad or shocked about something. Statement that represents something as better or worse than it really is, so that's exaggeration. Okay, now another word for exaggeration is hyperbole. Okay, so obviously it's not on here, but just remember that one. So that's when you might say that this is the best beer in the world, or this is the worst day of my life. So it's an exaggeration for effect. Okay, so two words starting with the same sound, that would be alliteration. So that would be, for example, boring Barney, would be that example of alliteration. Next one, done to make a word or phrase memorable, is repetition. Okay, so again, that's the idea of repeating the same idea more than once to make it more memorable to you. I'm kind of pulling it throughout the text. Next one, reporting what someone has said. So that's reported speech. So this is the idea that kind of like, for example, you might quote an expert or somebody who was an eyewitness to some account. The idea is that if you report what someone has said, it makes your ideas more believable, more stronger. Three words put together for effect would be rule of three. So it could be 3 words or can be 3 phrases. So the idea that there's been research done, if we remember things that in 3s. Okay, so if you're trying to remember in your writing as well, 3 ideas put together. Catchy sentence used to persuade, that would be a slogan. Okay, so for example, McDonald's slogan is "I'm loving it." Nike is "just do it," that type of thing. Next one, usually a percentage to support a point, would be statistics. So the idea of using numbers and percentages to say, for example, 85% of the people we interviewed in the school agreed that the catering facilities were not good enough. So that's the idea. If you've got percentages, statistics to support your point of view, it will make your ideas more persuasive. And the last one, words taken directly from the text, would be a quotation. Okay. So, like I said, so just a quick recap of those different ones. So, direct address, emotive language, exaggeration, alliteration, repetition, reported speech, rule of three, slogan, statistics, quotation. Okay, good. So, what we're going to look at first of all is a text, which is about daily life in the trenches during World War I. Okay, so before you start reading the text, just want you to pause the video, have a quick think. What do you think soldiers did every day? How long did they spend in the trenches at a time? Okay, so I've also got some video, some pictures here, which also kind of reinforce, give you some idea of what life was like in the trenches. Okay, so take a couple of minutes, like I said, just take a couple of ideas, think about what that might mean, and then we're going to look at the text here. Hopefully it will open a bit quicker than the Word document. Here we go. So it's this one here. So just so you know, there are lots of questions here, but all we're really focusing on is page 3, which is the worksheet, which is the story, the text about life a day in the trenches. Okay, so this is the one I want you to read. Excuse me. So pause the video and just think back to this one. Are your ideas the same or different? Okay, so I'm not going to go over the answers now because it's really just about your expectations, but hopefully this text gives you some idea of what life was like in the trenches. Okay, so what I want you to do now is look through these questions. Okay, question 1, I've actually changed it slightly. Okay, so question 1 is, what do they need to do every day before breakfast? Okay, and then go through the other ones. What are the worst jobs? What do they do in their free time? What impression do you get of life in the trenches from the soldier's account? Okay, so pause the video here. Okay, go back to this text, this one here. See if you can find the answers to these questions here. Okay. Like I said, actually, the first question, I have changed it, so let me just very quickly do this. So this is the question. Apologies for this. This is the question I want you to answer. Okay. So, what do they need to do every day before breakfast? What are the worst jobs according to a soldier? What do they do in their free time? And what impression do you get of life in the trenches from the soldier's account? Okay, so pause the video, like I said, read through that text, and they'll come back and check the answers. Okay, so question 1, hope you got the same answers as me. So what do they need to do every day before breakfast? And the answer is clean their equipment and their rifles. Okay, and obviously they will be inspected, and if they're not good enough, they'll get into trouble. Okay, what are the worst jobs according to the soldier? Got cleaning the toilets or burying the dead bodies. Understandably, they would be the worst jobs. Okay, question 3, what things do they do in their free time? So many choices here. So you could have playing cards, reading, making meals, or sleeping. So hopefully you got all 4 of those different things, because those are the things that they do in their free time. Question 4 needed a slightly longer example, a longer answer. So this was question, what impression did you get of life in the trenches? Okay, from the soldier's account. Okay, so this is my short answer here. Hopefully you had something similar. So I thought that the impression I got is that the life in the trenches is a mixture of difficult, boring and dangerous. So the living conditions in the trenches are very bad. They talk about rats and getting trench foot, but also get the impression that it's quite boring and pointless. So if you remember, he talks about we only shoot at the Germans when our commander reminds us to. That they're not that bothered really. it's just a little bit of a game. What is the point? But also, that they also talk about gunfire, bomb, shooting squads, which tells us how dangerous it is. Obviously, the shooting squad is punishment from their own side. Okay, so that's a short text, which I think gives you just an idea of how difficult life was in World War I trenches. Okay, so next what I want you to do is think about synonyms based on the extract. So a synonym, if you can't remember, it's two words that have the same meaning but are different. So for example, a synonym for sad is unhappy. Okay, so that's the idea. Two words, same meaning but different. Okay, so this is one of the questions in the exam paper. So I'm going to give you two extracts here, so A and B. I want you to replace the word in bold and italics, but keep the same meaning. So, like I said, so some of it is what I expected. The constant danger, the noise. Attacks are common at the beginning and end of the day. So, again, pause the video here and then think, can you find a word which means constant? And can you find another word which means common, has the same meaning? Put it in the text there. Okay, welcome back. Okay, so constant, so you could have continuous or never ending or endless or continual, something like that. So anything, constant means something which goes on again and again and again, or repeated. Yeah, it's always dangerous, basically. That's what he's saying. So you could have always, always danger. Remember, when it asks you to replace the word in italics, it also needs to kind of still make grammatical sense as well. Okay, and attacks are common at the beginning and end of the day. So slightly similar type of word, but common means something which is usual or normal or regular. So attacks are common means that's when they happen, yeah? So it's not unusual to have an attack at the beginning of the end of the day. It's like a repeated action. Okay, so either of those, if you had one of those words there, or, obviously there's more than one choice. If you had another word that had a similar meaning to that, then that would get you. So remember, like I said, it's always good when you're reading a text, looking out for synonyms, thinking what other words could have the same meaning. Help to widen your vocabulary. Okay, so what we're going to look at now is a story of a black British officer in World War I called Walter Tall. Okay, so very, very interesting man. So he was both one of the first black professional football players in England, and also he was a soldier during World War I. Okay, and like I said, not only was he one of the first black professional football players, but he was also the first ever black officer to lead white British soldiers into battle. Okay, so he, at the start of World War I, in 1914, he gave up his career as a footballer, and like I said, he joined what was called the Football Battalion when the war began. So Walter and many other footballers decided to join this battalion, because obviously football was suspended until after the war was over. So a battalion is like a fighting unit with around 1,000 men. Okay, so he, not only was he a successful footballer, but he was a very successful and skilled soldier as well. So he had a successful career during the war. He was promoted to the rank of sergeant, began training as an officer in 1916. And at this time, only a white British-born person could be an officer. So he was the exception to these rules. So that's why, like I said here, he was the first ever black officer in the British Army. Okay. So, unfortunately, a very sad end to the story. So he became an officer, what's called commissioned in 1917. Then in 1918, he sadly died in an attack on the German trenches. So he was hit and killed, and like thousands and thousands of other soldiers in World War I, his body was never found. It was just somewhere in the fields in France. Okay. So what I want you to do now is go back to the Moodle page. So again, we've got another text here. If I show you what it is, so this one here, Walter Toll. Okay, so we've got a long text here Okay, and then underneath it we've got a range of questions, 9 questions about the text. Okay, so all these questions are about kind of testing your ability to read and understand a text and to pick out information from it. So like I said, it's a reasonable length text. So pause the video here, take sort of 10-15 minutes, however long you need. See if you can answer the questions, and we'll come back when you've done that and we'll continue with the answers. Okay, so if we go through the questions, hopefully you've had enough time now to pause in the video to understand the answers, find the answers. So 2 facts about Walter Tarle's childhood. Orphaned at the age of 9 and went to live in a children's home. Okay. What difficulty did he experience while playing for Tottenham Hotspur? Very sadly, as it says, subject to terrible racial abuse while playing for Spurs in the early 20th century. What was the Footballers Battalion? Okay, so Football Battalion, as I said in my introduction, so it was a battalion made up purely of professional football players. Okay, so from a range of clubs. So not quite sure what the reasoning was, but for some reason they had a unit in the army that was only ex-football players. Okay, why was it surprising that he became an officer? Okay, so as we said, because at that time it was against the law for people of what they called non-European heritage, i.e. black people, or possibly Asian or any other non-European, to become officers. So it seems that an exception was made for him, due to, I guess, due to his bravery and his skills. What did you do to be put forward for a military cross? So military cross, if you're not aware, is like one of the highest honours you can get as a soldier. And reason why he led 26 men across a river onto a night raid and into enemy territory, and obviously more crucially he returned them all unharmed. So not only was the raid successful, but none of the soldiers were killed during it. Okay, and question 6, need to read a little bit what you do. How do we know that Walter Tull was well respected by his men? As it says in the text, some of the men, or one man in particular, attempted to bring his body back so he could have a proper burial. So obviously he realised the importance of returning, or wanted to return, Walter's body in order to have a proper burial. Although sadly he wasn't successful in that. And it mentions 3 footballers in the article. It's a couple of years old, so 2 of them don't play for Spurs anymore. But why do you think Dele Alli, Danny Rose and Kieran Trippier were quoted in this article? Well, 2 reasons. Well, first of all, because they're black or they're mixed race, and they also play for Tottenham Hotspur, so in the same way as Walter Tull. So obviously, you know, he was, like I said, one of the very first black professional football players. He played for Spurs, so obviously it's very similar situations to these 3 footballers. And here it talks about David Lammy has support from all sides of the House of Commons. Basically, it means that all political parties support this idea. So whether you're a Labour or Conservative or Liberal Democrat or Scottish Nationalist Party, the idea is that it's one of those cross-party ideas. How could you not support this idea to give them a military cross? So why does David Lammy think Walter Tull should be posthumously awarded the military cross? Posthumously means after death. So after humously death. Okay, so reason why he put that. So as he says, he thinks that Walter's story can inspire a generation. Okay, so not only is it the right thing to do, because maybe he never got the recognition that he got in his lifetime, so that's one reason, but also that, by being awarded this medal after this military cross after his death, he can maybe inspire a new generation, common generation, of what is achievable. Okay, so there was one more task I wanted to do as well. So if you go back to the question, again pause the video here. Okay, so I want you to see if you can find in the text remember we talked about these a group of 3. Okay, list of three, repetition, and the new one, which is an idiom. So an idiom is when you compare two things together using like or as. So, excuse me, just find the text. What's it on? Here we go. Okay, so like I said, so I want you to read through this text here again. Can you find a list of three, a group of three? Can you find an example of repetition? And can you find an idiom? So pause the video on this one here and see if you can find those things there. Okay, so excuse me. So first one, group of three or list of three. So there's different examples. So some here. So we've got great gallantry, great bravery, and a kind of coolness. That's one. And then following up, we've got another group of three, rule of three. He saved people's lives. He fought incredibly hard. He died young. Okay. So two different examples there. Okay. And then next one is repetition. Okay. So as you repeat an idea. Okay, so again, you could use this on here. You've got repetition of great, so great gallantry, great bravery. Just try to see if there's any other examples. No, I think that's the main one there. Okay, and the last one was an idiom. Okay, so like I said, so an idiom is when you compare two things together using as or like. Okay, so the other repetition, this quotation, his service on behalf of his country was immense, like we said, that comes here, and it also comes here, his service on behalf of this country was immense. Okay, and then finally, like I said, an idiom. Okay, so I don't know if I can really find it. It's potentially how it talks about they were so loud they could be heard in London. Guns were there, sort of comparison. It also compares here Walter's body like so many that fought and died in the Great War. And another imagery here is the idea of these people following in Toll's footsteps. So this imagery here of following someone's footsteps, it's the idea that you are doing the same thing as somebody else. Okay. So that's in terms of the reading activities. That's what I want you to, that's all there is down. But to finish with, I'd like you to try and get some practice of using both some of those language features that we practiced in the first activity today. And I want you to write an article kind of encouraging people to sign a petition asking that Walter Toll should be awarded his military cross. Okay, so what you're doing here is not only picking up information, so using the information you've got in the reading text, but also practicing your persuasive writing techniques. So if you think, so we talked about using rule of three, emotive language, direct address, that type of technique. So what I want you to do now is think back to those techniques we used in the first activity. See if you can find, again, looking for other examples of those. In here, so we've got the idea of direct speech quoted from this person. We've got emotive language, so orphaned, subjected to, tempted to drag, incredibly great gallantry, great bravery, so that's kind of emotive language here. So think about what other techniques you can use, and like I said, finish by writing an article how you can persuade people to sign your petition to award Walter Toll his military cross. Okay, so that's the end of the lesson here. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and remember to send the article to your teacher. And see you next time for another one of these lessons.